Life. There you go.
Like I think that's like we're a little sugar. So young. Yeah. She goes. She goes.
Three is the it's three in a row. Yeah, it's not total three, it's in a row. So if you go two and then you're here and then you miss two and then you're here and then you miss two and then you're here, it still counts. But if it's three in a row, then they can be real. I don't know if this one, if like the LSC has to vote.
I'm just being mean. I'm saying if somebody else.
Yeah. I'd be happy to appoint another parent to come in.
Yeah. New ideas.
But Lamont is community. And Leek is community. So we need community reps. We're full on parent reps. And community reps have to. Yeah. Right. And we learned last time.
I'm so sorry. If we can put it in that folder, then I'm gonna see if Chris can print a copy. Eric did it. I'll just kind of get it printed.
Was that the last? Where did we see that?
The one from Jose?
Okay, he said that we got today.
The one that rests are correct. We're supposed to go.
There were two of them.
There's one that's.
I saw an example one. Right? Yeah, that's already in there.
There's one that's
sample advertisement. Is that what it was?
But I thought we saw them last time we met as well. I remember reading the young one 2 weeks ago.
The Jose one?
Here, let me show you. I have one on here. This is what it looks like.
Yeah, they're the same ones that Jose sent on June 9th.
That's the only one I have in here.
Okay, there's another one that Chris sent.
Oh, these are slides. So yeah, he only sent. The only thing that he said was the young elementary school and then the slides, and those are the same things that you really. That's it.
Wow.
There should be another one. She's printing.
Yes, we're in 120. So you have to come into the front of the building. Yeah, sorry. I know I did the same thing. Try not to pass out. Yeah, go around to the front of the building and then turn right. We're in a class. Yeah, you said that's I don't know, like a couple of classrooms. Oh, I'll just go open the door for you. Are you by the gym? I'll go. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the garbage in there. Take all your stuff to the garbage. Clean it and go take it to the garbage. Where's the other one? Go take all your stuff to the garbage. Clean it first. Disconnect it.
Yes, I
Okay, I do the thing.
formalities. Women are not here yet, but we're all into how we're going to figure out how we make sure that we're here before it. What do you answer, Chris?
We go big. We go big. Do you need the agenda here?
I saw you when I was leaving my house. I was like, yeah, it's not Laura, but you're too fast. And I was like, okay, I'll see you.
There's plenty of room to take notes on this.
Plenty.
We are all signed here. Thank you.
Is it 2 pages?
2 pages.
Oh, man.
This is young elementary school. They're all 2 pages.
I'm passing them down.
I got one.
You have one. Oh, thank you.
I'm just passing them
Got
down.
it.
There we go. I think this side's good.
So Chris is giving me the one that Roger did. I can share that in the drive.
So she brings us back.
Right.
So I'll take that.
You know,
But
you want it, so you got both.
yeah, all the time doing that, right? Never not.
It gets me on.
Isn't that fresh enough from other? Yes, it's fresh. Yeah, so it was one of those things, I was in the grocery store, I found myself this. Yeah.
I get them at all these Saturdays.
See, I love it when you get a fresh hat.
Yeah.
In high school.
They're still warm. We did.
Now, T was talking to that girl, wasn't it?
Overnight. One by the Costco. One by the Costco.
Yeah, this morning, even at so 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock phone call, 9 o'clock, last 4 hours. Then on 9:30, turn around, get dinner. 10 o'clock, church.
Yeah.
All the big orders. Or I come back. So back. I'm home, couple hours. Come home. Please sign this. Get me the guy on the phone. Like, I said, do you know who that kid is? Oh, yes, sir. He's been here 5 years. I said, what? Do you know me? Yeah, he's that, right? Can you come home?
Is there a YouTube today?
It should be on.
It's on.
What's that?
Someone just texted it.
It's not a good
Well, maybe it was.
Yeah, it's gonna be on.
Yeah, it's been weird. Two of mine right now. It's gonna be, like, I popped in and come here, and I didn't go and get the groceries. So I gave you your credit card, she and John went to the credit card. They're already making some changes, and I know today the show's last day. Yeah, I have to, starting at 1800, the law, that's places where you start to look at.
And everything's okay.
I can keep it that way, right?
They were just wondering.
Oh, yeah.
what is.
And then like, next week, there's this holiday, we only have to work 2 days that week.
If you go.
If I run a bike to here, just on the
I get weak sometimes like. You used to have to do that.
Right, and then where's that? Wasn't like yeah.
Okay, I think we can get started. Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Matthew Kwame. Welcome to our LSC special meeting. The one in the series of many, right? In addition to our regular meetings to go through the principal selection process. So before we get started, I'd like to go ahead and read our norms. Be an active, engaged, contributing participant by sharing perspectives and actively listening to others. Be flexible and respectful of others' time and decisions. Be open to other people's truths and perspectives. Be reminded of differences in cultural and social backgrounds. Be transparent about concerns, challenges, and misunderstandings. Be reflective, collaborative, and supportive. Always take the work back to student achievement. What can we do to make things better for our students both academically and social-emotionally? Respect student, staff, and LSC member confidentiality unless there's a threat to safety. Meetings should be paused if LSC members or meeting participants experience harm due to their identity, including but not limited to gender, sexual orientation, race, etc. The harm should be named. Understand that not everything has a right now solution, and trust that the process is ongoing. With that, we'll go ahead and do a roll call. Matthew Kwame, parent rep.
Megan Zoper, teacher rep.
Bridget Yansky, teacher
Udo.
Eric Oakson, parent rep.
Rocky Dodia, parent rep.
Sonia Brown, parent rep. Larry Dayton, community rep.
And Oliver is going to be joining me at the YouTube channel. I'm going to be able to speak because he's far away. And then both sons are actually sick. Lamont is unable to join. I'd like to bring up, so for folks, Adolfo Ramirez, who's one of our LSC members and was a non-teacher staff representative, has essentially left the LSC, and we are lucky to have a replacement. And so I don't know. Much less verbose than I am. But so essentially, so what's happening is there was a nomination process that goes through CPS. We had as the larger LSC, or at least the parent reps, are not involved in that. So Amy was chosen so there's a couple more steps for her to be officially the non-teacher rep as part of the LSC. So we thought that, why wait? So Amy's gonna join and participate in those meetings in full capacity for the time until such time that we are able to. It's just a matter of putting the name on the agenda. It's one of those things where you have to wait. So welcome. Thank you. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. I hope you do.
Oh, I told her.
How you doing?
Thank you.
But thank you.
Thank you for being welcome. What's your title and role within the school?
I'm a special education classroom assistant for CEQA.
Okay.
right? Well, first grade.
Okay.
She started with me.
So thank you again for doing that. The second item here is the approval of the order of the agenda. So because some of these are going to be fairly similar as we get to be, but there are going to be some changes um, as we move forward. But I'd like to make a motion to approve the order of the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Before we move forward, so I think most of you have the agenda behind you there. Raki is keeping me honest that the YouTube thing is working, the battery's full and it's charged, and it's plugged in this time, so hopefully we'll be good. So I guess we can get right into it in terms of the selected discussion items. So last time, as a quick recap, we had a very informative session with our colleagues from the Office of Local School Council Relations, and we started sort of jotting down a couple of big ticket items, or at least sort of like a high level review of the timeline and what we were expecting. So a couple of things that we would like to do now is continue iterating through the timeline, but also start talking about some of those more critical items and specific items that we're responsible for. I listed them there. They're not in particular topic of importance. They are all as important. But I thought, let's start there and then have additional conversations as necessary. I think what's really important, as far as I'm concerned, is that we kind of take the time to get it right, but also sort of like find a way to move forward as nicely and as possible. I don't know why I said nicely, but as efficiently, I guess, as possible. So the first, and so please do feel free to interject. We will have public participation, so thank you for your patience. But we want this to be as interactive as possible. This is a little bit of a different topic, right? The first is, so we're looking for somebody. So what we're trying to figure out is kind of tell the world, or the community, what we're looking for. Right? So, and perhaps, like I said, it's one aspect of all of this is the timeline that we need to review. And then Bridget also kind of gave an update on some of the surveying work that has already occurred. So if everybody's okay to start with that document, understanding that it's not sort of like the goal is not to get this done today, right? Like, I mean, we're not going to be able to. There's a lot of input that we need to get. The idea is to kind of like establish the framework. Like, are we now that we have a couple of examples that we've seen or that we're seeing? What is sort of like a laundry list of some of the items that here right now, knowing what we know, would be important to act. And again, there's going to be there will be additional iterations to make sure that this document is self-standing and represents the input feedback of the community, but also what we really are after. So there are two documents that we were presented with there, and those are actually their actual job postings for two other schools that we've seen. And so the idea is to kind of take a read through, making sure the overall principles are there, or the objectives are there, and then be a little bit more prescriptive or strategic about what we want to put in there in terms of requirements and all of that. So let me start there. I don't know if there's just to make sure that we're clear on what we're trying to do. So there's, for those of you, I don't know if you've seen it, but some of it is, and we will share that. That's the other thing too, in terms of communication. we started creating a whole bunch of folders, some of which are still sort of restricted to this group here, but once we kind of get our bearings here with all the documents and whatnot, we will make sure that we share the proper documents and that everybody can see within the Google Drive all the folders that we created, the content, and all of that. So a lot of this here that I'm seeing has a little boilerplate language about CPS, the mission of the district, and then it goes straight into the school's information, what the school is about. I think what's important here is there are some things that we can list, but the mission and the vision, you probably don't have to copy of that, and the vision. So I'm sort of looking for feedback, or in terms of like I said, we haven't gotten through getting that feedback from participants or from the community, but is there something that's on people's mind, like right now, that we should keep our minds focused on? And I have plenty of room to write stuff, so like, let's just be at it.
Well, I can start with notes that I took last time.
Yeah.
And it's part of the discussion we had when we were wrapping up. But I think across the board, however this comes together, we need to have right at the top, must be able to maintain an IB accreditation. And I think that comes from the chances of finding an available candidate that has experience in IB leadership is probably a pretty small pool. So that's where, my opinion would be, it has to be able to maintain it, not has to have 10 years of experience already running it. And that makes it very clear that this is a very important part of the school, but that we can accept candidates outside of a very small pool. I also think it's just from the discussions we had about principal evaluation and some of the feedback we've gotten from different community surveys that we need to have towards the top of the list a really robust statement about developing staff and building relationships. And just given the identity or the reputation that Peirce has as being one of the most parent-involved schools. I was just reading through here in the Rogers Park Fine Art one, where the candidate really has to have an ability to maintain and build positive relationships with the many community organizations. We're not a school that has just a PTO or just an LSC. There are so many different groups, and we need a leader who's able to have a good relationship with all of those different areas, and someone who understands there are a lot of parents and a lot of community members that represent a lot of interests that are very involved. And the last note I took was just strong public communication. And I skipped one here because I don't know how to write it, but over the last year, we've had a lot of discussions around student behavior, and we've had education sessions and what defines bullying, and we've heard from a lot of different teachers. So I have no idea how to write this, and parents, but I think it is important that we recruit a candidate who can help wrangle that area. It's an area that definitely needs work at our school, and we need someone who can really get on top of that. And I don't know how to write that statement. Must be able to maintain IB accreditation. That's a very clear statement to me. But when we talk about the months and months we've had about this discipline, I don't know how to put that into a great bullet point, but I think it's a very important one.
And sir, I could add to that because I was thinking along the same line. And the word that comes to mind over the last 2 years, being a community rep, is proactivity. Someone who's proactive. I know in our values, there's not a solution for everything, but a sense of here are things that we should be thinking about. Okay, I'm on top of that, and let's brainstorm, bring in the community. I think that is very important to be proactive and not falling back to CPS regulations or policies or saying there's nothing I can do and all that. I just have a strong sense that's going to be important. Just having watched the last couple of years as a community rep.
I have more kind of like big picture uncertainties. For example, if we send out a survey, which we will, how do we disaggregate data from that survey to include into the advertisement? Like, what if we get hundreds of responses, which I hope we do? How do we use that information to insert it into an advertisement? How do we hear from teachers in this process? How do we include students in this process? So I have more sort of big picture questions leading up to the timeline of interviewing and narrowing things down. Because Peirce is such a large community, how do we equitably hear voices? And then once we hear those voices, how do we incorporate that into the process?
I think part of that is the survey needs to be structured in a way that fills in sections. So, I mean, let's just pretend in a generic, there's an opening school description, with any job description, there's qualifications, and then there's things you want, and so on and so forth, or experience, or education. If the questions need to fit each one of those categories. So if it was a category of a generic job description that said education, then there's a question about what's the education. Mm-hmm. I think that one in particular is very, very open and shut, mm-hmm. and the experience is very, very open and shut. Mm-hmm. But if we can go down to, 4 questions, 6 questions, but they are, the question feeds into paragraph 1 or paragraph 2 or paragraph 3, so that even when we get open answers, we know that each group fills in a block, mm-hmm. versus just a field of feedback. I don't want to sort a field of feedback.
Yeah. This is for purposes of running the interview process. Is that what you're?
I was thinking community feedback, right, to fill in the job.
Yeah.
Job advertisement.
So Chris shared also, I think, some of that. So I think we can take a look at that. What's in there? Start with that piece and then share it with the community. And then there's always a section there. Hopefully it's not going to. Hopefully the questions in the survey are going to be good enough that the open text section is going to be used sparingly, because sometimes what happens is if you have too many comments like this, sometimes it boils down to some common themes, but it might take a little bit of time to get
right
to what people are trying to do.
This is when you're actually interviewing the candidates. I think maybe just for us to juggle, what are the 5 most important things to us that matters that we would like to see them come in? Because I know I did one of these before, and we did an off question where we had all the applicants, we were interviewing them, and we asked them this question: what does blank school look like to you as you being the incoming principal? And that was a question that we didn't put on the sheet, because we had a sheet for them, so they get to study the questions. So we put the questions that they weren't able to study. We asked them right there and point, what does it look like to you to run? What does that look like as principal to you at Peirce School? What does that look like as you being a principal? So you get to get their honesty and catch them something they didn't have time to study, and you want to kind of get the real answer, what does it look like? Coming in as principal, taking on this leadership position, I think we should probably focus on maybe, we just give them a number 5 as the most important things. We're here, where we would like to see the direction Peirce going in, and make that go into whatever the community find it where it fits in, and we can narrow it, kind of makes it easier, so we just don't get so many things and just keep it, we can focus on the most important things that we would like to see. Teachers have a voice in that to say what they would like to see. Students have a voice, the parents, the community, and do from there.
I agree. I think that the two aspects of getting everyone involved. One is informing the job description, right? So, and as we went through the training, making sure that we are as objective as possible, right? And that's going to be hard if we just have open-ended what you want in the candidate. So making sure that whatever we ask, we can be objective in quantifying that because we're going to need to rank these like 1 to 5 or 1 out of 10. So yes, we can have a survey from parents, teachers, students, and just making sure that whatever is important, we say what are the top 3 important things, and we can be able to rank those. So that's one, obviously, right now. Then later on, and if we do host a public forum where the final candidates will be able to present to the community, then there's additional feedback we can gather from there. So those were two concrete ways.
Yeah.
So in the job description, I think you raised that one good question, like what is the student, like the sort of student feedback? What's the process of gathering that for purposes of the job description? Is that necessary? Is that how do we make, and if so,
Well,
if it
especially
is, how do we make that
summer.
happen?
Yeah.
Occur, or
Right. There's no students right now.
display? Not so much that there's no students, just more what's the process of going about getting that feedback?
The one example that I heard is that students are part of the interview, or at least greet the principal when they come to the school, give them a tour, things like that. I haven't heard beyond that other examples. But I also just want to name this place that we're going to always be stuck at, which is balancing community input with a timeline. Like, we want to hear from all the stakeholders, but we also know that there's a finite amount of time that we have to do this. Like, I think that will be a tension throughout this whole thing, like, to do it with fidelity, but also to have a cadence to the work.
When we're looking at the 2 examples that we have, this one here from Rogers is lovely. It's extremely long. Right? This one here from Plaid, Hope and I kind of wrote the same thing under here. This person on the mission of the Chicago Public Schools. That's standard. In accordance with CPS principal competencies. That's standard. We're not going to change that.
I
Schools
agree.
information. It's already on our school's website. Our mission and vision. It's already on the school's website. All this stuff about candidate following the characteristics and skills, they're similar on both of Rogers and Flagg. The people that are going to come in and interview for this and even put in their application, right? Like, I just don't know if we need to reinvent the wheel with the application, with the advertising. And I'm not saying like create a copy this, scratch out, change the name, and that's it. But make sure we include the ID stuff in there. But when you look at this, all this collaborates and encourages staff voice.
These are taken straight out of the rubric.
Models, professional, ability to address, resolve, and implement a diverse range of evidence-based approaches to discipline. Maintains and expands after-school programs. So like a lot of this stuff is.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to.
Yeah.
This is lovely. This is very.
Yeah.
This is very nice. No harm, no foul to anybody from Rogers that's listening, but instructional focus, leadership focus. Some of these leadership like excellent organizational skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So big.
It's almost like it's broke down, like leadership would be like the teacher survey, broken down, and then community, that's super good. There is overlap.
Well, I think that's kind of what I would want to hear from stakeholders about. Like the IB is the most obvious, but then what about our multilingual population? Or what about just the scope of the school? It's, I think, probably one of the largest elementary schools in CPS. Largest. I think we have 1,000
We're in the top 5, I think.
students. I do think there are a couple other salient attributes about Peirce that I don't have on my radar. Yeah.
But I agree that there is absolutely a clear format on some very obvious CPS, school vision, so on and so forth, that don't really need deliberation. We know, when you pointed out, that those things must be there at the top. But really the difference between the two of these is how many bullet points we've got towards the end, and a lot of the bullet points are pretty obvious. So I feel like we can reduce some of those bullet points to being, a couple of very, very clear boilerplate statements about you have to be an organized leader, blah, blah, blah. But what we should focus on really is after you get CPS description, school description, 5 bullet points, something of that nature. This is the Peirce thing. So IB is one of the statements right there. And I think that's if we put in work towards, the top 5, if it's 5, that are specific to this. And then all the rest of those things, it's standard stuff. But, and maybe we don't even need half of those bullet points because they're so obvious. It is, what you need is, this is the specific thing for this specific school versus someone could apply to any CPS school for this position.
So I think the big question is, or the main question is, the purposes of this application, what are our next steps in terms of feedback from the community? And understanding that this is to let people know what we're looking for.
I think I would love to hear more specifically on what do you think the salient attributes are of Peirce from teachers, students, mostly teachers, and parents.
Staff surveys done.
Oh yes. So we're gonna talk about. Yay.
So the answer is we need to
Yeah, I think that's
Can
very.
we?
I want to read that.
Yeah, no, I think that we shouldn't get distracted based on the formatting, like a lot of this, is just a formatting thing. We send out the surveys to different groups that are important to this community.
Yeah.
We give them a deadline and say, what are the top 5 most important things to you in this next principle, right? This is someone that's going to be with us for 4 years at minimum, so it's important to focus on that. Then in terms of the format, is like typical job description, and then hiring, what is required, must have. So we have that, and what is preferred, like, right? Then anything after that is not as important. So I say we keep it simple. Then really focus on number 3 is the timeline, right? When walking backward, when do we want this person to start? What are the constraints right now that are not in our control? And just walking backward.
Okay, so can we wrap up the advertising conversation?
Can I ask one clarifying question?
Yeah.
Is our website up to date? Because that is something that a candidate would look at. I assume it is. Okay.
So what I'm hearing, so Bridget said that the teacher and staff survey has been completed. So I think what we need to do is come up to that level on the parent side and community side, right? And so for next steps, what we're looking to do is do the outreach to both the parent groups that we know exist, as well as the broader community to get their input and be very specific about what we're asking about. We're asking for some of these attributes that they're looking for that need to be part of the job description. That's the first thing that I would like us to kind of, if possible, kind of wrap up so that we can get the get the job description out there for the teacher to review and then come back to us. So that's the what. The how, so we have Rocky, thank you so much for doing this. Rocky's putting some of these in folders. I can take a stab at least, let's make sure that we got the survey request out as soon as possible. In the next couple of weeks, I guess. I think we can think through that.
The survey looked at by legal.
That's right. So that we need to get it.
I mean, it does seem reasonable to use the same survey that I sent out.
This one?
Yeah, I mean, it's 4 questions. What do you see as the current strengths of the school community? What do you see as opportunities for growth within the community? And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. People in here. There's 8 choices. Rank these 8 things in order of importance. We only have 7 boxes, so that's okay. It works. But like,
What are those? Oh, so
management style, approachability, instructional leadership experience, continuity and stability, institutional knowledge, knowledge of curriculum, budget experience, and idea. So teachers and staff rank that and said in order of importance what they wanted to see. It does seem like something that could transfer.
You have that? Where did I remember that? It's serious.
we'll get to that in a minute. That's the second item. That's the next item.
All right.
Let's finish this one real quick. So, no, I think what you say, so that you're suggesting we use this thing and send it out because then we avoid DPQ.
Well, why would they need, what would need to be different from the parents and from community members? What other questions, what are the strengths, where are the areas of growth, and rank these 8 things?
Then is there an open-ended section?
There's not, I mean, the first 2 questions are strengths and areas of growth on both.
And those are open-ended.
Mhm.
I don't know, I'd have to look at it.
I was gonna keep it as simple, since we don't wanna feed or leave the witness, just leave it open-ended, like, what is important to you, right? And have them rank those, then across 3 different groups, staff, parents, students, then we pick out those that are important, since we already have the typical boilerplate, ranking stuff anyway.
So the good thing on the parent side is that, not to name them, but the parent groups are ready to help us simplify the outreach. On the student side though, like what's our take?
It is useful, right? We're not doing a physical survey in the middle of the school year. So I think it comes down to, this gets emailed out to parents. The instructions need to say, involve your children in answering these questions, or do we want to do 2 of them? Click once for yourself, do the survey, then click the survey a second time and have your child or children fill it out. And I think that might get too complicated. I think it's as simple as, in the preamble, this is, to your whole family, put your opinion, put your children's opinions, put your neighbor's opinion, fill it all in here at once.
I think we should return to the student input when the school year starts.
It's too late though.
But I mean, students, most students, I teach upper grades, check between 8 and 30 minutes during the school year. So I don't know how, for this, the advertisement, how strong student voice would be in the
Right.
summer.
That's what I'm thinking. It goes to the parents and it tells the parents, fill this out as a family. That way, you might get the students' input, you might not, but there was the opportunity to do it without trying to chase down everyone in summer camp.
And this will go to incoming and current families.
Yeah.
Along with the community. Is that what the SMORE does? Yes or no?
Incoming, I don't have those emails yet, so I have not received those emails yet, so I have not added any incoming families. This is all this FY 25. Are the only things.
I don't know
This
if Aspen gets incoming families or not.
well, this seems
That's put in literally.
Once they're registered and assigned to classrooms, they
Okay.
go through Aspen. But
this seems like from an IB perspective, something to bring to the student rep who's coming on the LSC, the student council. Like we have systems in place at Peirce where students organize and talk about share their voice. So I feel like we could harness those, but we'd have to wait till the school year.
Right.
No.
You're getting to the
We
one
need student
point.
voice to be advertised.
No, I think we should incorporate it once the school year begins.
Right, so I think that's a no.
Yes.
Not for the ad. I wouldn't worry about it for the advertisement.
So we're clear that we don't need to wait
No.
for the,
Right, and I think if the advertisement goes out, if you involve your family, if you do it yourself, it's okay. Then I think separately, I think that we can ask students before all the interviews are through, when
Yeah.
school starts,
Well, I
like
mean-
those two separate surveys.
This is just going back to the tension. We have a timeline. We want to include input, so we're doing the best we can to meet both of those needs.
That's what I'm writing down. You get two surveys. The first one is right now, it's for our job application, and then we can discuss as we get through the interview process how we want additional feedback. But right now, we need a quick one that's easy to get through so we can get this advertisement out.
Okay, yeah. So on Google Sheet, you can keep it simple. Start with what's your role or affiliation to the school. You can say parent, student, or community member. Fill in the form. And yeah, so no need to send two separate documents. You can do just like what the affiliation is.
And we didn't ask for who filled out the survey. We didn't ask for a name or a title.
Yeah,
or anything.
no need for name, just affiliation, so we can say, oh, 10 students filled out, and this would be from 10 students, right? Or did you like name and email?
We did not do
Okay.
anything for the students, we only did a staff. We sent out to staff. To staff.
Yeah, and also students are gonna be with their parents over the summer, so I'm sure if, they can do it in one sitting, unless they are parents, I'm sure, yeah.
I think we're agreeing on that.
Yeah.
So we can talk about the timeline. I think what we're saying is just send it out now
Yeah.
to the broader community with these topics there.
Is there anything that we want to adjust from what Bridget already created?
But that's what I'm saying. So like, we need to look at that. And,
I'd like to be able to agree to that in the next few minutes, to say, I like this, or make it go on TV.
And have a recast on that computer, so.
Oh, yeah. Does that work on that?
I mean, I just read it to you, that's what it is, it's those 3 simple questions. What's good, what's not so good, rank these 8 things, done. And then it gives you a paragraph at the end, shoot that out through S'more or Aspen, get some feedback from the families. This is just for the advertising, right? It doesn't have anything to do with who we're interviewing, whatever, and all this is standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the job qualifications, what are things that are specific to Peirce? ID, which, and, diverse, but I mean, and all that, the ID, I think, is the only thing that's not in here.
So who's gonna send this out?
I think we would just have to find out from Jose if it can serve the same purpose without legal review. Because legal have to say, yes, legal said, yes, you can send this to the staff members, because legal also have to say, yes, you can send it to the community. That I don't know. But the attorney from downtown is doing it.
Yeah.
So the ones legal clear, who physically send it?
They're in the room.
But that's not going to include people from the community, and that's not going to include anybody that's incoming that hasn't registered.
The score doesn't go out to the community?
I don't think anybody can sign up for S'more, right?
Not unless it only goes out to families and staff.
So then that's when we reach out to our amazing parent groups and the locals to see if they can advertise in the area. Is that sufficient, or do we need more? There is like, I don't know, Andersonville groups, there is different parent groups, there are different.
Are you gonna say too? The Andersonville Chamber of Commerce gets a say in.
I am putting it out there. I'm not
How much do they donate to the school?
What's that? No, I mean, in terms of folks, and I'm trying to solve for the incoming parent problem.
So
Where are they gonna know?
Would be on
Only
the
those
website,
3
but
questions
you
you have
can
are your
go
advertisement.
What's
So
that?
these are the next questions on the survey, I'm looking to the staff to say, what, we need your input for the advertising, for step 1.
Okay. So it's the staff.
Just say.
Just step it. Well, then if I forward it, we can send it out to the community and the parents via SMORE. And then
Families,
And
the families.
families via SMORE who have signed up separately from Aspen. Aspen is different. Only those that have signed up for additional communications are on the SMORE. It's only the SY 25 families right now because I don't have access to the new families who have signed up. And then the Aspen side of it, I believe once they're registered, they're in Aspen, which means when I click email all, it goes to all families that are in Aspen. So, it's not by homeroom or anything like that, it's just all families that are in Aspen. So any new families that are registered, I believe, and I can check on that.
Yeah, well, I know we're trying to balance efficiency, quality, and engagement. I don't think we can truly solve for incoming families that are not in the system yet. They will have a chance, a year into it, to voice their thoughts and perspectives. So I say we proceed with whoever we have and send it to all the community groups. Don't we have a Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's just send it out, whoever can catch it, put a deadline. Because we need to move.
I'm gonna reach out to Jose with this thing. Ask him if it's okay. The preamble, I mean, the one for practicing, it's gonna say, I like the suggestion that was like, again, what's your connection to the school, whether it's a family or to the parent or student or community. I hope that people are going to be honest, there is something to be, instead of that, so we'll take a look at the results and prove how many we got.
Yeah, I'm less worried about that, but I don't have any objections to it.
Okay, I'll reach out to Jose. As soon as he gets us the go ahead, I'll share it.
I actually have the attorney from downtown, she emailed and said.
Yeah.
So couldn't I just send her, reply to her and say, we would also like to use this as a way to survey our parents and community, do we need an additional approval?
I'll give you that. He also, he seems to be correct. He seems to be shots I had. He's calling, that's from the latest thing. Okay. I think we're good on the advertising, and then again, this is for the purpose of getting the feedback from folks. And we'll talk about the timeline there in a minute. Are we good? Next one, I mean, we've already started talking about the surveys to the community teachers and staff. So I think you all did yours. How long was it looking for? Like, how many people responded?
Could we get a copy of the results? Do we on the council get a copy of the teacher survey results?
No, I mean, I just gathered it as a,
The real question is now that it's done, can we see that?
oh, sure, I don't.
Well, no.
Yeah.
She'll take care of that. You'll send her stuff.
Yeah. It would be helpful to be able to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To know what's actually being discussed.
Yeah.
What's the needs and the demands and what
So,
we focus on.
from what you saw, what you want to give us, like,
Sure. Put it in the spreadsheet or whatever. What do you see as the strengths of the school community? A lot about dedicated parents and teachers, programs include everyone, wonderful arts partnership. Education is inclusive, all students have access. Teachers have been placed in leadership roles. Talented involved, so a lot about how the staff is great. Family involvement. Staff prepares for students, supportive and inclusive. There's an intercultural vision, open dialogue and discussion, problem solving. Makes effort to support equity and inclusion. Makes effort to include student voice. Um, Fantastic staff. So right, it's like the same thing. If I share that, caring for all the students, collective teaching staff is very strong and collaborative. I can share if we're doing
Yeah.
more of that. Maybe
Well,
a
I
little
would-
bit more. It
I'm
seems
really curious about the open-ended responses, and I'll just say, as a parent on the LSC, I have a really hard time getting any reading from teachers about how they feel or what they think or what their sort of vision for a principal is. I feel really disconnected from teacher voice. So I would really be interested in hearing that.
Where do you see as opportunities for growth? We're still grappling with the challenge of gentrified schools and general balancing power dynamics. The voice between heavily resourced families and those of long-established communities. Um, these are areas for growth. We need strong leadership, transparent communication. We need more parent involvement. So it said tons of parent involvement and the pluses, and then someone
And it
said
says read more.
more parent involvement. Coordinated PD that meets teachers. And so some of these things we're not going to put in the advertisement. Are you willing to coordinate PD so that it's specific to the grade level? Right? That wouldn't be something you would put in the advertisement. That's something that we need to know, that's something that's important to teachers. An administration that sees staff as partners, not adversaries. A complete overhaul of our discipline system. Establish a school culture climate that provides a healthy balance of student choice and independence with clear behavioral and procedural expectations that are upheld with consistency. Principal models how to set and maintain these expectations. Better communication between staff and administrators. Student discipline. Bringing play back into the younger grades. I did not write that, but I agree with that. Case management, transparency and communication, leading curriculum committee, micromanaging, harassment, unfair guidelines for writing time and expectations, unrealistic tasks, expectations, and expectations to only some teachers, inadequate training. So a lot of it was that. It was like, we were not treated well. And teachers are letting you know that in here. How do you put that in your advertisement? How are we going to be treated? I don't know if humanely is the right word, but respectfully. Social emotional support for students. Respecting teachers as professionals. Honest and open communication. An opportunity for growth. Routines and rules. School discipline. Communication across the staff. So I can share this, but that's what
A lot of these sound like a lot of the Facebook type things that we're going to be
yes.
focusing
Right.
on for the interviews and forums for these
And
very
when they rank
specific.
those when they rank those 8 things, the number one thing that everybody put down, number one, is management style. So you put management style in a bullet point
And that was right from
from the teachers to staff rated what we need most in a new leader, management style.
Yeah, I think
Approachability is number 2. Instructional leadership experience is number 3. Continuity, stability, and instructional knowledge is 4. Knowledge of curriculum 5. Budget experience 6. IB 7. So that shows you, I feel like teachers feel like we're well versed in IB, and that obviously we need a principal that knows about IB and that can implement that and be a partnership in doing that, but
that's great, but I feel like, I don't know if I'm the only one seeing it, but I feel like that's great as far as the aspect of teachers and staff, get those demands and everything. But I feel like there's a gap between, you gotta make sure we're getting the parent demands, and the teachers that just don't wanna miss that out.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm missing it, check me, cause I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm hearing the staff, you guys are treated some type of way, you wanna make sure you're treated fairly as you should be. You know, making sure the teachers are fine, but we gotta make sure, I'm not hearing the part that I wanna hear, like the parents or students, just making sure, even though we're correlating things that we want, it just seems stronger from the teacher's point of view, staff point of view. I just want to leave everybody out, that's all, you know?
Yeah,
I don't know
so,
if I'm the one.
no, I agree with that.
Okay.
The 8,
Those are strong
Things.
points. Yeah.
Who came up with those 8 things?
It was a survey that we got from another school, and that's
Now,
what
what
we used for their
they
survey.
did is they used the rubric in the handbook,
Okay.
to go to some of those, which is like the main items within that are covered in the.
Okay.
So I think what Bridget is saying is that, what I'm hearing is those specific items, again, are the ones that are going to require specific focus once we have identified the candidates and once we start doing the, whether it's the interviews or the forums and all of these types of things.
Right.
As far as the parents are concerned, though, I think it's, I think the way the rubric is still covers what we're doing. The fact that I responded with management style, that's specific to the teachers from what I'm hearing. I think that the question itself, what you're looking for, is still valid for the parents.
That's why I didn't want to put the 8 in front of the parents or the community, because they will have their own 8 things that they care about. So let's get those additional 8 from the community, then we'll balance it against the 8 from the teacher's perspective and say, okay, doing these 16, wow, it looks like there's overlap or not. Then we could go into the interview process knowing exactly what the parents care about, what the teachers care about, and what the students care about. We're not putting those 8 in front of the community. Otherwise, we are leading them. Yeah.
And when I
That's
think
my
that
perspective.
thought was just to help, as a guide, to help
Yeah.
the community and the parent reps to get something out. To start getting it.
Yeah. I would really like to hear more from the teachers about elaborating on this, why management style is number one. I think I have an idea, but I would like to just hear a lot more about that. Maybe not for the advertisement, maybe, I don't know, but in terms of this process, it seems important.
I think it's important for understanding how to conduct an interview. But for us to get the job advertisement out, I don't think anyone has a strong objection right now. We've got a template. It needs to legal needs to say, yes, you can reuse it, or no, you can't reuse it. We have a method of communication plus extra help to amplify that communication. I think what you brought up before was timeline. At this point, can we assume that it'll be approved by the end of this week and it can be advertised? So the other thing I remember from last time is they get published on Wednesdays. So we know that we're not going to be publishing in 2 days. We want we want a week or so, maybe 2 weeks, I don't know, to collect this information. We want it to feedback. We also want to adjust writing this, and we want to get it out. Last meeting, we had discussed getting it out on the 24th, 25th, but in that last timeline, we already had finished this process. So that's fine. And just Matthew, as you're putting things back on the board here, this week, legal says yes to our survey. We send it out. We need a certain amount of time to collect it, a certain amount of time to read it. We need to make some adjustments to this. With or without the survey, these 2 templates need to be adjusted a little bit. I think they're both too long, but we need the very simple copy and paste of Peirce's statement. We need our top bullet points on. We need to send that back to legal, and then we need to get this whole thing published. And I don't see that all happening in June at this point.
Can you rewind for a minute, sir, or just so I try to? The survey to the community, that is to help get input for the advertisement or after?
I think it's for the advertisement.
Okay. So you get some input from those stakeholders to then write the advertisement and then send that to them to approve. Or get edits and then send it.
The example I brought up last time was we might be completely wrong, and 90% of parent survey might say basketball is the most important thing. I don't think that's the case, but I don't have the ability to know what the majority of our families want. So I think it is important, even if it's just 1 week, to just see, like, we got a very clear from the staff, what do you think is the most important thing? I hope from the parent community, we get a very clear kind of same thing. I don't think it'll be the same bullet points, but I'm hoping that it'll be clear, this is what's most important, and we put those, right, like, I think you're right, I don't think that's an advertising question, it's much more of an interview question. But something in there might just be absolutely glaringly, this is the thing that we need to put as the first sentence or the first paragraph in the advertisement.
I'm so sorry, I have to go. Are you taking
Yes,
notes?
I'm your deputy note taker.
Right.
All right, so we gotta draft it, which means we get this piece done first, we go draft it, and then DPQ, wait for the approval, and then it goes. So, that's it. At best, this is like, because we need,
Can I
yes,
ask a question? Does it go to the network chiefs first, then DPP?
I'll send it before, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
we have two networks.
Yep. So before that, we need the second half of the survey. We've got the teacher staff survey, we need the parent community survey. That informs how we're drafting it. So I think you're pointing right, you know, in that date.
So that's, we send the email, that's out, and then couple of days, see what it says, and then we send it out to the community response. How much time do you want to give to get the feedback? Now, at this point in time, we're looking at July.
I'm waffling between a week and a half, and I'm only saying a week and a half because some people take whole week vacations. But at the same time, I don't think the entire community is taking multi-week vacations here. I think a single week will, even if we get 30-40%, we'll have plenty to get.
It's digital. People have their phone on them 24/7. So I don't think vacation would be a limiting factor. I'll be on vacation in Michigan, but I will respond to it. So I said, let's work around some of these major holidays, right? So my perspective is by July 4th, we get the community parent feedback, you know?
The deadline is July 4th.
Yeah, but get it back before you go on your holiday, like, you know?
Maybe a little
Two
sooner.
questions, huh?
It's June 30th.
Yeah,
June 30th.
The more time we give, the more it will take, so. and
But are you using the same survey? It didn't sound like that you wanted to use the same survey that was for the staff. And if that's the case, if you want to create.
No,
a
I
survey-
think they're okay with that, as long as
Oh,
we
the
make
survey's
it clear.
okay?
I think they're okay with the survey, as long as we just stipulate in front of it who's responding.
Yeah.
So that's why we're asking the shots out, like, hey, here's what we send to the teachers. We're planning on saying the same thing to the parents in the community. Are you okay with this? They say yes, we can send it out.
My point was around those 8 items. The 8 items seems to focus on the teachers.
No, so the answers that they gave
Yeah,
were centered around that particular topic. But the topics themselves, those 8,
yeah,
are taken straight out of the rubric that is part of the principal evaluation
Okay.
topics to ask for.
okay.
This is the one that just kind of like made its way to the top, right?
Okay.
So we need a level of the biggest one.
So we're in our last week of June right now. We need time for legal to say yes or say no. I have no idea.
She's super fast. I would expect her to respond to us by the end of the week.
By the end of this week, which means that we can't post it until the end of this week.
But we can get it ready.
Yeah. So right, it can be drafted. Just the send button can't get pushed. But let's just say, good scenario here, it gets pushed this Friday, which is the 27th. Monday is the end of the month. Next Friday is
July
the
4th.
4th. So, yeah, I mean, do we really, between the 30th and the 4th, is that a good window? Or I would push to say close of the day, Monday the 7th. I think honestly people are going to take the 4th through the 7th off, or they're going to take the 30th through the 4th. But in there, that just gives that last little push on Monday the 7th.
So we launch on the 30th, is next Monday. That's what's the word? Conservative.
Optimistic.
Aggressive, yeah. Scenario. Close. So this is the one that we'll be talking about. So assuming we hear back from them this week, and then launching next week. We're saying that some people are going to be away doing different things. And if we leave it open for 2 weeks a week, we then have to close. So we set it up.
I honestly think that so this gets the survey, this gets the advertisement out there. We need more feedback during our interview process. So I think that we can be a little bit more in depth in those kinds of things. So we don't go through 2 weeks. Let's just go through 1 week. Let's get this thing out here, and then we can be developing. And maybe we'll get to the point where we get.
We say we launch it on Mondays. Sorry.
That's all right.
June 30th. We want to close it on July 4th.
In
7th.
that case, they will launch it on Monday, we should close it out on Monday. The 7th, it'll be 7th.
Can we negotiate that week?
Why?
So we're saying, just giving people sufficient time. I understand it's online, I understand, like, well, we're going to be as forceful as we can, pushing out
Do you want more time?
a little bit more.
Okay.
I'd say 7, 9.
All right.
The 9th, which is
It's-
Wednesday.
Yeah, since we need to post every Wednesday, right, then it makes sense to give them till the 9th, then that gives us a week to readjust and maybe post it the following Wednesday.
Does anyone object to 7-9?
But I mean,
I'm fine with it.
so the draft, this is when
We need to meet.
complete-
Yeah.
We need to meet and complete that draft. Okay. Before we send it out.
Oh, we need to meet back and with us.
Yeah, we need to review that. So when it gets posted, we need to get the responses. We need to review them. I'd like to be able to review them before a meeting. We need to pin one person to draft this document and then come to the meeting with the document drafted and just remove some bullet points.
Yeah, it shouldn't take more than a couple of
So this is going to coincide with the next thing.
Okay.
Not to be confused with the organizational meeting. The week afterwards.
Remind me, when is the org meeting? July? No, it's, it's the 8th. I have July 8th.
I have it on the 9th.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, so let's,
Is it the 8th or the 9th?
Yeah, I have it on the 9th, 5:30.
I don't have it in my scribbles.
So July 8th at 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
Which
All right, that's what I had, July 8th.
is a good, what's that?
Yes.
So that's a good one though, just so we can sort of assess how many responses we have and potentially extend if necessary. Okay?
Or since we have the meeting on the 8th, it makes sense to make sure that we get the responses before the meeting, so we can discuss in that meeting as well.
I'm still worried about the lead time.
Yeah.
We will definitely be ready to provide an update. Right? And before that, we'll also sort of reach out to our parent friends just to make sure that we continue. Yeah. Okay, so let's assume that the 9th is when we're closing the survey. We then need to share the results.
Yeah.
We need to incorporate the results into the draft. Which means this here assumes that the survey feedback is incorporated. So what's the date? What's the date that we
Well, you're saying that the date we need to meet to finish writing our advertisement?
So, or do we need two, where we come in and say, this is the full set, and this is when it's rolling, and let's talk about it, or, and then review it again, or all that work, so once we get the close, we share the results with the group, then start incorporating the results there, such that when we meet, that draft is essential, it's a pretty good place.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when we meet, the draft already needs to be written. We need to assign a person that is gonna write this draft between the 9th and our meeting. And the end of that meeting, we will just modify that to send it back to legal to say, is this good to publish? So
the survey I can take care of, and that's my name next week. So Bridget already, so it's done, so we're done with the survey. And then so this is what we need. So then we need to have somebody so I will share the results with everyone so that we can start the draft. So we have like one being and then one person that's going to be happy with the draft.
Did we decide which one we want to
I would say
model
we just
more?
a merge of the two. Because the first, that's what that one doesn't have the first two paragraphs I talk about the CBS stuff.
So I decided them for the,
It is like the Peirce division.
Okay, so we're gonna other two people.
I-
So
I-
no, but I need two people. So yeah. So Lake, you're gonna be the lead, and then Megan's on. That work? So the idea is once we get the survey results from the parents and the community, that I would share that ASAP with everyone, so you all can start. But before that, you can already start sort of the draft that we can have. This way, when we are meeting after the 9th, we'll have a pretty good copy to discuss, review, and possibly vote on, so we can say, yeah.
So that meaning is just the vote on that final draft.
To the extent the work has been done to like get it as close to final as possible.
yeah, it's either accepted.
So what will be done, I'm just trying to understand how to make your meeting again, just to.
Well, because I mean, that would be one piece, but now that these months.
No, I understand that, yeah.
The primary goal of that meeting would be to complete that draft and figure out next steps, send it out.
And send it to legal. Yes, it's either accepted as it is, modify it and accept it, or reject it and rework on it. And I think it's the middle one where we'll make a couple of modifications, we'll all agree and send it to legal.
Yeah, so my question is, could people submit their feedback legally on the draft, or do we have to?
Yes, they can, but we still need to do a vote so we can send it out.
Right.
If that's what we're.
And understand, like, we can work on it between the meeting, we don't have to sit in the meeting to write the draft.
Yeah, I'm just trying to separate what is
I love
required and what is.
Yeah, Jose's not standing here telling us we're wrong now.
That's right. No. certain what to say. Okay, so we have a, what's our, again, on a good, on a reasonable date to meet for that purpose. Understanding that the things, well, let's first set it out before the,
All right, so results for the survey on the 9th.
yes.
I think it's reasonable to have the draft written by the following week, and we meet sometime the week of the 14th with the intent that it's 80% there, we're modifying it and agreeing to it on the week of the 14th.
July 15th.
Another
I would-
Tuesday.
I would aim to post it on the 16th.
We can't.
Hmm?
We
No.
can't.
Oh, that's, it
We're gonna
needs,
send it to DPQ, then all this needs to
Oh.
happen before.
Yeah. yeah, it wouldn't post until the 23rd.
So if you send me the survey on the 9th, the draft will be ready to send to the board by Friday, the 11th.
Let me be slightly technical here.
Okay.
11:59 p.m. on the 9th. You understand?
Exactly, send it to me.
Well, I gotta look at it first. and
Okay.
Send it back to you, but you're gonna get it sometime between 11:59
Yeah.
on the 9th and, midday or end of the day.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so what I'm saying, I can commit to having it done by end of the Friday, the 11th. So we should set up a meeting either on the 14th or 15th to discuss it.
Okay, 13, 15.
15, yeah. I have gotten committed on Monday evenings.
Okay, so Tuesday the 15th, 5:30, same time? Yes? Can people call in?
You're gonna need to make it happen.
Okay.
As long as there's enough people present to do a vote, other people can call in.
So let's put on the calendar 5:30 on the 15th.
One of the things that I was thinking about is trying to figure out the cadence for these meetings. It's gonna be a little bit easier going into the subsequent months. This one is a little bit of a crapshoot, because it depends on, there are some dependencies that we're not necessarily, able to control. Once we do that, hopefully, those cadences are going to be a little bit more predictable. Okay, so, the 15th, we meet, if everything goes well, the 16th, we're able to send that out. I don't know how long it's gonna take for them to approve this. That's actually one thing that I don't hear. Like, there's one, I guess I could have asked Chris here. I'm trying to figure out, like, from a DPQ standpoint. I won't say that I still haven't heard from DPQ from asking me all those questions for what I'm not sure, but it's not because they're not paying attention. Okay, so we agree that this is gonna be done
The
on the
15th.
15th.
So 16th, send it to legal.
No, it's gotta go to network.
Oh,
We're gonna send them, I'm gonna send them both
Like at night.
in parallel, all three of them.
And
Okay. So
give them a
then,
week.
we don't know. They'll do whatever they want.
well, we can tell them, our
Yeah,
desire is to publish on, what was that, the 20?
yeah, really good.
Yeah.
But once they approve it, they post it right on Wednesday.
That's right. That's right. It's got Wednesday rotation now, we're trying to,
So to set expectations,
so we're hoping that this gets done on the 23rd.
yeah.
That's a big hope.
Yeah.
They will need to mark just to get downtown. We'll do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we should send that to the network chiefs now, saying, hey, our intent is to send this to you on the 16th, with the desired publish on the 23rd. That way they know, versus the first time they get notified is the 15th.
Yeah. can do that.
I gotta do it. I have one more thing, just really quick. Is the survey, is the purpose of the survey really to talk about what we want to put in the advertisement? All of these things, all 8 of these things are gonna go in the advertisement. The priority will be, when the teachers are interviewing the principal will be their management style, their approachability, their instructional leadership. When the parents are interviewing, do we really need survey input for the advertisement? Because what you put in the advertisement is standard. You have to have this much experience. It's kind of everybody is the same thing. We make sure we include the ID stuff. To write the advertisement, do you really need a survey to say the most important thing is management style? We're not going to put that in the advertisement.
Sure. I understand what you're saying. I do think that I don't want us to have some kind of, there might be something that we're not thinking about. I just want to make sure that we just cover it. That's really the only point, the only reason. It's not because we don't think, I mean, those bullet points both on the most recent one that we got and Rogers tend to, so like, you're right, there's some conflicts in there, there's a lot of stuff that's similar. I just want to, and I know that we've talked about IB and I wait, like, somebody's sitting out there somewhere that is got something that they want to say that we did. I just want to give them the opportunity. That's all. I'm not. And I still think that there's enough here. And if we go, let's see how quickly we can get this up. We get the approval, we can push these dates. We're saying between the 27th and the 30th, what it is somebody standing in the way of sending out the survey. That's really it. But to your point, like I just want and let's see. We send out the 30th. After 2 days, we get 100 responses. After 3 days, we get 150, 200. At that point in time, we can kind of see, like if you have like an adoption period, like it's going to be really high at the very beginning, and it's going to plateau. When it starts plateauing, we can start talking about this. And be like, and if we need to send out reminders and all that stuff. I'm not opposed to be like, hey, look, we got a ton of answers now. Like let's meet. I think it's just more a matter of like he used a couple of days is all, but.
She
Then you got
approved the survey
weekends
in
coming
90
through.
minutes last night.
What's that?
She approved the survey in 90 minutes.
Perfect.
So I
If we do that,
think
then
you're
we-
gonna get an approval tomorrow.
That would be
If we get the
fantastic.
approval tomorrow and send it out.
So we can send out the survey this week. This week we can send the survey. So we have like a couple of days to work, or like as a Google, is what I'm saying. We can. My worry is that week of the July 4th. Yes, people will have access. Yes, people have something, but I don't know. Like I still want to give votes.
Yeah.
And that's just me. Like everything that you said, I completely agree with you. Like the faster we do this, the better, and we have more time even for this. All the posts, deep with you, I don't know, man. Like it's.
Also, I don't think we should be too concerned about the speed. Look, this principal is going to do that for 4 years. What's the difference of 1 to 2 weeks? So we need to take our time to consult the community. If it comes back word for word, these are the things, everyone has had a chance to be heard. So that's my perspective. So.
Okay. So at that point in time, we'll be, and so they said that the survey in general or the posting is open for two like 10 days, 10 businesses with 2 business weeks. One of the things that we discussed was other places of other. Well, they said we could do it on our own. When people apply or reply, like how much time? Because we're going to make it specific to say if you want to apply, go through DPQ.
Yeah, you must apply on CPS's website. And that's, I mean, there
So
are
that's
things on
secure
LinkedIn
that.
right now that say that for all sorts of things. It's,
Okay.
Chicago Police or the library. It's on LinkedIn and it says you must apply through the city of Chicago or things like that. So it's
And you have to be on the special list.
to
You
see.
can't just, somebody from Vermont can't say, I really like Chicago winters.
You gotta be qualified.
You have to then get a hold of somebody in CPS, you have to get on a special list, so it's like not an easy, they don't make it easy.
That's posting on CPS. The part I'm talking about posting outside of CPS. How do we wanna, we also wanna give it 10 days? Or 2 weeks? The same length, right?
Everybody needs the same length.
10 days is minimum from the training. It doesn't have to be 10 days.
We
But
can
that's
do
the
it
bare
longer.
minimum, and it has to be the same for wherever.
Yeah.
or-
The catch is that if we go 10 days and we want to extend it, then they throw away the resumes we've got and they start over. We don't get to continue to collect resumes. But from what I heard last time, we might, through CPS, we might only get 3 or 4 resumes. So I think it is important to advertise wider. But then when we talk about you need to be qualified through CPS, that minimum time period, if you're from Vermont and you can make all the CPS requirements, but you've never done it before, I have no idea how long it takes to get through those hoops to say you've confirmed all of your qualifications meet our requirements, and you now can apply to a Chicago position. I have no idea how long that takes.
One said when she did it, just recently, when she was retiring, that when she first got the job, 25 years ago, 120 some people.
I remember
And
that.
this time, 12. So we could get 12.
12 is good.
We could get 12 straight.
I think the question is, the guy or gal that applies, so 7/23, assuming we post that. That means 7/31, 7/31, and then 8/06 or 8/07, August 7th. The person that applies on August, I guess it doesn't matter because as I said, it's a window
Yeah.
of time that everybody's gonna have their resume, and then PPQ is gonna do their evaluation. It's the time after this posting that is gonna be that's nebulous. Is what I think the thing is, like, we can't move forward with all these things, scheduling candidates and all that stuff until they tell us who these are the resumes. But we gotta have to guess some time, but I'm thinking it's gonna take a long time, perhaps even the entire month of August for us to hear back from them. And that's conjecture, I just don't have it.
I think we're trying to keep in mind what we can control, what we can't.
Yeah.
We can control the posting time, right? And that will give us an estimate of when CPS will send us those initial 10 CVs,
Uh-huh.
right? So my perspective is we give them, 2 weeks. 2
Yeah.
weeks is standards,
Mhm.
right? To have a job posting out there. And if someone is gonna apply from Vermont, then they better know how to go through the CPS process. That's not our business, right? So we shouldn't be concerned about that. We'll give them 2 weeks, July 23rd, 2 weeks later, and that's when we know definitively we can start reviewing those 10 CVs. When we have first round, second round, and final candidate for us. So,
Okay. And we can, so next time we meet, hopefully we're gonna be here, we're gonna take that on and add more to the bottom in terms of these different steps that we talked about. I think in terms of timeline, and also out of respect to everyone here, I'm 70.
yeah.
Are we good with this thing?
Yeah.
And again, last time we're supposed to be, all of this was supposed to be today, so we try and do some work as quickly as we can. So I just want to make sure we didn't, there's something we missed.
So our next meetings are the 8th and 15th of July.
That's right.
But open. It's the 8th, it's just, so it's
That's
a
right. Okay.
So we may agree on the 2 weeks, or we need to.
I think we're good with that. Again, it will also depend on what. My experience so far with DBQ is like sometimes kind of, I can call, like I've been,
Yeah.
and they're once you get them on the phone, they're fairly responsive. So maybe a weekend you can ask them how many have you let us know like, how many have you gotten. The next item, so thank you for that. The next item here is selection committee. What I meant by that, or what's meant by that, is the principal selection committee. And so the question here is, so in general, and so we had this conversation. The principal selection committee can be made out of both members and non-members. So the conversation that we were having was as far as what the committee should be made out of. So we heard from Chris, from Jose, some of the things that were coming out of the process is that the LSC is ultimately responsible for voting. At least 7 members. The community can and hopefully will be involved in all of those steps that we're about to embark on. The question is, as far as the selection committee, should that be opened up to members of the community, whether it's parents or otherwise? And what does that look like? So last time when we spoke with, or when we had the training, the conversation or it wasn't a suggestion, but what was said was that because the LSC has the ultimate vote, members of the community could and again should be involved in all aspects, but it wasn't a requirement that non-LSC members become part of the selection committee. So I know that was a mouthful, but I'd like to hear what people think about that. The idea here is to make sure that, and because it's no secret that folks want to be involved, folks want to know, folks want to do, etc., etc. The question is, what is the best? Right. As far as we're concerned, as far as Peirce is concerned, what's the best way to set this up?
Yeah. How do we manage it so that it's functional, efficient, and effective?
Inclusive,
yeah.
Representative,
yeah.
Efficient, in all of the other aspects.
Very strongly agree that we should have members who are not on the council involved in helping. And we've got people here who are very interested. The issues are, how do you manage an interview process? Because a 10-on-1 is just a crappy interview. I know that they had talked about the community forum, but I don't think that that's the same thing as opening up, set up on the stage, everyone can come in and go through a forum. It's very different than having a couple of very seasoned staff members or a handful of parents who understand recruiting very well, that have a talent for this or have a strong interest. And I think that we should have some people in there. But the question is, who's doing which parts and how many of them? And at the end of the day, the council, whether we all or part participate, we have to be informed to be able to make a decision. So I think I haven't answered the question. How do we do it? I agree that it is the right thing to do. But Chris Munns had brought up some of the things that didn't work when she went through it. I think she said there was too many in one side or the other, or it just got too unwieldy and became an us versus them.
So, yeah.
Okay. Two clarifications. One, there's the LSC, which the main job of the LSC is to elect the principal and renew the contract. So, and from the training, I believe that this subcommittee individual is not necessary. If the LSC wants to create
Yes.
subcommittee, right? And since this is the single most important job of the LSC, I really urge the LSC to everyone to participate and not create a subcommittee where one or two or three people will do drive the entire thing. Right? So that's one point. Second, completely agree in terms of involving the community and all the groups in the process. What I'm talking about is how are we going to represent every single aspect of the community
Right.
on that committee. So there's the LSE, then there's the staff that are working within the school that are not on the LSE. Then there's the parents in the community. So there's three different groups here. My thinking is with the surveys and getting feedback and maybe to the public forum, those are avenues to make sure that everyone is involved. So,
Yeah, I think a survey on how to structure interview questions, I think that would help. That gives everyone the opportunity to ask a question without actually being there. Now, right, if we get 500 unique questions, we cannot ask them all. But if there is a survey that says, what are the top 3 things you want a candidate to be asked, and if 100 people respond and 75 of them have roughly the same question, and that involves a good chunk of our people, of our community. But I do also want some help. I don't want us to be doing every single thing ourselves every other week, trying to find babysitters and leaving work early and stuff like that. So I think it is helpful for managing this process to have a handful of other community members that can participate in certain parts of the interview. And I think the way to inform that is just we have to decide how many steps in this interview. We don't have to do 3 steps. We don't have to do 2 steps. We can do a single interview and then do a vote. We don't have to do every single one of the steps. But generally speaking, large organizations do a screening, which is just talking to someone on the phone. You are a human. You are the person who actually submitted this. You do the basic simple, your resume says A, B, and C, and they understand it. It's screening that they are the person they are. There's an interview of stakeholders. So in this case, it's very much staff as stakeholders. This is the people that you'll be working with. And then there's in a corporate world, there's a meeting with an executive. If a candidate gets through that point, then there's a department head or a chief or someone who says, this is someone I want to add to my team. Now, we're not the same thing as that, but that's 3 different things. I mean, one is just a screening, but there's different stakeholders in there. And then there's the public forum, which I think the public forum is great too. But maybe it comes down to there's 2 intermediate interviews. There's a staff interview, and then there's a community parents interview. And maybe they're back to back in the same day. You do half hour with staff, half hour with a member of the council has to be there. And if 2 parents have that day off and want to join in, but we also have to be very standardized in our questions. We can't have, well, this person got asked completely different questions because that's who was available to ask them that day.
Yeah. But all of that makes sense, and I think that's going to speak to the mechanics of how we would have the next step. Just want to hear, like, in terms of the selection committee, like what your thoughts are in terms of expanding it or opening it to non-LSC members. That's what I'm trying to get this feedback.
Isn't there something in the disease side where you can't just share the resumes?
We cannot share the resumes outside of the committee, correct? So anyone that's not part of the selection committee, so even if they help with the forums, they help with the surveys, those folks might have to That is a big concern. I mean, it's a critical component of that consideration.
That's just controlling of information. It's you arrive 15 minutes early, you get to read the resume, but you don't get to take it with you.
Point of clarification. So the subcommittee would potentially involve non-LSC members, community members, teachers, and so forth. And they could help run the process, moving candidates across the 3 stages. But the actual decision on who to move to the next stage, like that requires an LSC vote, right? And this, so I think we need to clarify, if those non-LSC members are involved in that process, are they voting on moving those candidates to the next stage? Okay, so that
The committee can recommend to the board.
Yeah. So essentially what we need to decide is who and the setup of that potential subcommittee.
So, so I did hear back from some external resources that said that they'll be willing to come in and talk about what you just said, what to look for in the resume, how does that process works, and specifically for these types of positions. So we could leverage that. The question is still the same. Who do we want to include as part of that block? So we have interviewers. That's the one, or resume screeners, whatever they are. That piece needs to be a restricted group of individuals. The interviews, again, we said that we wanted to make sure that the questions were the same, but they didn't need to be asked by the same people. Some of those rubrics or some of those topics, and IB is the one that's the glaring one. There could be some questions, but how do you evaluate the answer? Personally, as a parent, I don't know that I'm qualified or sufficiently so for that purpose. But does that mean we need to have because that situation lends itself to having, in this particular case, what I call a hybrid committee, which is formed of the LSC plus folks that have the expertise, given the fact that we are the school that we are, right? I mean, not as recently as this last weekend, people said, what's the difference between an IB school and an IB demonstration school? And I was like, well, first of all, I'm impressed that you know those two terms, because it took me some time to get it. But what I'm trying to say is, and Chris talked about it at some point. He said, well, it's a concept that you should be expecting that some potentially strong candidates may not have any expertise. That's fine, but still, because it's such an important, it's plastered all over the school, and outside and inside. So that piece to me, in addition to the representation, like as I mentioned, those are the two things that I'm not necessarily struggling with, but I just want to make sure that we're properly addressing that, and people don't feel like those decisions have to be made sort of like in a vacuum.
Right, and that's kind of where kind of formed as I was talking. I think it's important to do a teacher and staff-led interview. There's a very strong stakeholders and a very strong knowledge that the rest of the group can't speak to. Just don't have any experience, can't do it. And I think that's very much like a focus thing. I almost see if we call it two committees or two teams, where there's a teacher and staff focused, driven, very pointed, specific questions that I could never figure out what to even ask for it. And then separately, we have things that parents and community members want. And I see those as two separate groups of interviews, even if they happen at the same time, back to back, or if they happen at separate times. But I can't contribute at all if I was sitting in an interview asking things about curriculum. I have no ability to provide feedback, but at the end of the day, I need to be able to vote. So I think when we talk about how do we organize committees, and I also think it's important to invite other staff members who care about this but are not part of the council. So I see whether it's 2, 3, or 4, there's a team of staff and teachers
Well,
conducting
that part,
interviews.
In the nicest way possible, we'll handle that. Don't need to worry about that.
Yes.
We will handle that. And when we're talking about interviews now, we're gonna get some resumes. How are we gonna go through the resumes and what kind of a committee? You can't have, I remember this from last time that it wasn't always the same people, and if you were gonna have a resume review, I wasn't involved in it at all. I was on the LSC the last time this happened. I wasn't involved in the principal process of getting it done for the last 2 candidates, because I really couldn't. So now, I think we can all pop in and out of whatever we want to pop in and out. We don't need to be selected or anything. Anybody else, all these people here, just all these people that are basically, or spent their Monday night doing this. I think we need to hear from them on what level they want to be involved, and then you just have to, like, do you want to be involved in the resume process? Can you put 10 people in a room and you pass the resumes around and then you say, I like number 1, I like number 5, I like number 7? Do you do that, or?
So that piece is going to happen no matter what. The question is, who's going to be sitting with you?
Mhm.
And whether, the most important question is, should that include people that are not members of the LSC?
Right.
That's the piece that I would like us to kind of like,
Do they have to have approval?
Right. So there's
Does there have to be approval? Or can you say, on Monday, we're all gonna look at resumes, hop in if you can? And then 10 people come and do that.
did
Do they
we
have
ask
to
that
have
question last
approval?
time? Did we ask that question from the last time?
Yeah, I think we said they don't have to sign like confidentiality
NDA.
agreements. I think yes, anybody can do it. So, my understanding.
Quick comment on how I've done corporate interview process. After the screening, right, the hiring manager and the recruiter will do the screening to make sure that those 10 CVs meet the basic requirements. When you need input from maybe to meet the department, have and you looking at that person. So in this case, I would say teacher, staff, and parents, right? So making sure that how do we bring in those specialists who understand the ID, I don't understand the ID system, right? Then with that feedback, that the LSU will use that to select the final candidate. And maybe bring those back to the final forum presentation. But whoever is initially selected to be part of the panel, right? They have to obviously be in the process, right? It's not like they do,
and there's more than one task here, so I wonder, there's more than one team, I don't know if there's more than one committee, whatever, but the point is right, that step 1, receive resumes, review them, determine who's actually even gonna get screened. Yeah, that's a group right there. Maybe that's group of volunteers, pick a day, whoever can make it on that day, and if 10 people want to volunteer for that one pass.
What do we do? We just blank out the name?
Um,
Or the non-members of the LSC to go through?
Well, they have to be in a committee, and if they're on a committee, they can review things, but they can't take anything with them. But I'm also fine blanking out names. I don't think that hurts anything. But the end of it is
The
to
next
sort
question we
these.
need to ask from Jose.
So we need
Does
to,
the
Yeah.
we're
person
not there.
that is on the committee need to be approved? I do not recall them needing to be approved.
I don't
I feel like he said we have to sign something for the privacy purposes where they would have these things.
It's treated the same as any committee. The council has to vote to say we want a committee, and the council needs to vote
Yeah.
to say who are the members of the committee. And I guess it's a legal question. Even if legal doesn't require a privacy statement, can the council require one? Or can we say, if legal says you can't require anything beyond us? I don't know.
So we talked about sort of like the specialist question, right? The folks that we have.
Yeah.
Beyond that, my concern remains like if folks come from outside the selection criteria. You're gonna find somebody over there. I was telling somebody earlier. We have very strong designated parent program. There are also parents outside of these groups. We not hear from them all the time, or not even know that everything that their concerns are. The situation that I would like to avoid is one where that representation criteria falls off, where people say, well, obviously these guys.
Yeah.
So that would be my only leg to stand on as far as recommending that the LSC remains the selection committee with the addition of folks that have specialty
Right.
in things that matter for this school. And it's a very generic term, but really what I'm trying to say is the parent groups won't hold space, when it comes to interviewing the forums, making sure that we ask the right questions, making sure that we are aware of what's being said out there so that we have all of that. That can happen outside of a formal committee membership. That's where I am, barring, subject to the question of the need that other folks, from outside the LSC, the privacy issues related to it. That's where I'm going, but I feel fairly strongly about it. I do know, and we're going to talk about public participation.
Right.
I shared a letter that was shared with us from parent groups, just making sure that there is inclusion and that there's representation. I feel very strongly about that as well. I want to operate within the confines of let's make sure that the information gets centralized.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that we're going to need that help.
Right. So there's general volunteers, because there's things like a forum, and then there's the potential for people to help in a more in-depth on a committee. And those are two separate things. We didn't ask it yet, but the question needs to be, how do we solicit those volunteers, and what do we can accept help with? But it comes down to, yeah, we want some help conducting interviews. We've got the staff and teacher side completely figured out. It's the parent side, we need some help. Sorry, just taking notes. 7:30. Oh, let me say back. Right, never mind. All right. When it comes to parent and community interviewers, we want some, but we don't want 50. We want 1 or 2. When it comes to setting up a forum, 10 people would be great, to help usher people in, get the seats set up, all those kinds of things. When it comes to reviewing all of these resumes, I think that's a very routine task. I don't know how much more help we need on that. When it comes to doing a screening phone call, I feel that that's a very administrative job, that one person can call each phone number. You are a human. This is your resume. You are interested in being screened.
But do we even need to do that first? Because CPQ's gonna do that,
Yeah.
right? So the
Yeah,
exam we're
we
getting, it
don't.
could just be, like they said at the training, they had a ton of typos. Nope.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're gonna give us the
that
10,
initially,
right?
depending on how much there are.
10 qualified resumes.
Yeah, they're gonna give us the 10, review the human being by the time they get to us, right? So then,
Fingers
what do
crossed.
we do with those 10?
Okay.
Do we move on 5? Do we move on 7? So that initial screening is what is the first job that we need to do. So who should be involved in that? Should the LC just come together, have a meeting, review all 10 and say, here are the 7 that we're gonna move on to the first round of interview?
That's one option. That is definitely one option. And because the rubrics are going to be ready, so similar to what we did for the principal evaluation, the idea is to have everybody listed and have the members listed. It's who is the most common. That's really so it sounds like, again, in the interest of time, it sounds like we need to do a couple more clarifications and we can bring that up like as the first item of business next time we meet. Just to make sure that we get that done. And I'm sure, between now and then, we'll hear back from more folks to give us some more kind of and I think I made my suggestions clear. I think we're good. So next step, so we talked about the next meeting, so again, independent of the organizational meeting. So we have some dates here that we're going to memorialize and then send out an agenda a little earlier. I think this is fine for now.
It's working for now.
It's working. All right. Okay, good. Items that need to be added for the agenda. So we talked about the selection committee. So getting some of those answers, the clarification on the signing of agreements if necessary, and we need to iron out that particular piece. That's really what I want to make sure we. And then also, once we get into that space, right? Like start talking about interviews, like you said, is it a separate thing? Is it a combined thing? The forums themselves, we have like a couple of ideas I think through everything. Certainly discuss. Next item, public participation. So I want to keep checking as well. Thank you so much.
Gosh, look.
Thank you so much.
Is Albert name?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all your hard work and for going through this process and making sure that everybody understands everything, for setting up the documents into a place where the community and parents and caregivers can look into it. So that's super exciting to hear. So I'm part of the racial equity parent group and sent a letter earlier to the LSC council, but I just want to read parts of it here as part of public comments to share with other folks who may not have seen the letter. So we just really want to thank you for dedicating efforts in leading Peirce's principal search this summer. We recognize that it's a tremendous responsibility, and we encourage you to include the community in this work. So following right up into the principal selection committee process, we appreciate that the initial ideas such as surveys and community forums that were discussed in the prior meeting that we had on June 9th came up, and that as a consideration, we hope that the LSC does actively continue to involve the community in these early stages of the selection process so that parents and caregivers and staff and others in the community have a voice from the beginning and not just at the very end of selection forms. We believe that early participation will foster a strong and fruitful partnership with the school's new leadership and will help to unify the Peirce community. Peirce, over the past few years, Peirce has seen significant improvements in the school community, including the implementation of restorative justice, a focus on diverse learners, the creation of inclusive environments for students of color, LGBTQ+ students, and just to ensure the continued growth and development of these advancements, we think that it's really important to center families from some of these marginalized groups into the process, understanding the value that they bring and being involved in the decision-making process. So we ask that you guys consider forming a principal selection committee that includes different parents, different caregivers, can include any other community members, staff members, teachers that want to be involved in the process and feel like they have something to offer and that they can participate at a level that they wish to participate during this whole process. We hope that the LSC can create a diverse hiring committee where you can hear voices from folks that are on different parent groups at Peirce, that are from the Bilingual Advisory Council, from parent volunteers who help work on the CIWP process, have been involved at all these different stages of community development at Peirce. And then specifically, REP can help support by bringing in and sharing specific resources and best practices from an organization, Region and Illinois, who also comes up with a lot of these training guides and helpful materials for parents and schools to use through some of these processes, including the principal selection process. I think there's a variety of ways that you can think of how to form you guys have brought this up at different times, but there's definitely, parents that have caregivers here who have different strengths and expertise in like survey making and research and like collecting and quantifying data, and a lot of that stuff can help spread out the burden of having to do all this work in such a short amount of time in one specific space, and can bring in like a diverse variety of voices as well. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know that you guys have spent like a whole lot of time talking about the survey and how it's gonna fit into impact the advertisement. I speak as like a parent who's like super devoted to the school and has really strong opinions on the qualities that the principal should have. But I really don't think that the survey needs to happen before the advertisement goes out. We all have applied to jobs and we all know that we skip over a lot of those bullets. And I think that whatever principal is gonna apply for this job is probably gonna skip over a lot of those bullets, or they're gonna think like, oh, I took this box. And I wanna caution you all at doing that survey first and putting a bunch of like check boxes or bullet points in there to be possibly performative, just to make people happy, when really that survey is super important for the interview process and creating a rubric later on, and maybe having a different survey, taking the time to have a different survey, because the qualities that are important to teachers are different than the qualities that are important to parents. Like taking the time to possibly tweak that survey, and that's just different questions to parents. Like, well, it's great that the survey is like done. Having questions like how the principals will relate to parents, like communication or like stuff like that, might be more important to parents than like management style. Because like, well, it's really important to me how management style, because like I love my teachers a lot and I have a lot of friends that are teachers. That's not like super important to like a lot of parents. So getting that like advertisement out and getting as many applicants as possible, because that group is small, is like super important to me as a parent. So I'm just putting it out there, and I know that that's done, but just wanted to say it.
A couple of things. One, I was gonna say something similar to Lauren about the survey and it going out to parents. As a parent also, like the survey that came to staff, as a staff member as well, it is different, and there are things on there that probably don't have any meaning to parents or any understanding to parents. And so really thinking about that. But then my bigger piece is the selection committee. I really think is a vital piece in this process. Being a part of the selection committee the last time around, 10 years ago, I was a part of reviewing resumes. We had a group in a room for several hours where we just sat, we went through resumes and narrowed them down. And we took one time to do that versus multiple times to go through resumes. And it made it very streamlined. We passed them around, we looked at all the resumes, and then we said, okay, these are the ones we want to make next step. And did that right in that space. And it was good to have, there were a variety of people in that room. There were parents, there were staff members, LSC members. And I do think that having different people, having people a part of that process, then having some people a part of the interview process as well, in terms of developing the questions. I don't know that they need to be there to like hear the answers, but like definitely to develop the questions. And then of course a part of the performance, because that's just, anybody can come to those. But I do think it's a really important piece to have multiple stakeholders involved in all of those places. And a very simple survey could go out to say, are you interested? And if so, which parts are you interested in? And these are the potential dates we're looking at doing this on. So to make it really like out there, simple, doesn't have to be super involved. You're gonna get the ones who really wanna be involved, and then you're gonna get the one, you're not gonna get answers from the others. So, and I feel like it's not gonna be a lot of people that you have to like weed through to who would really wanna be involved in those different assessments, processes. So, yeah, and I know everybody keeps bringing up IB as the IB coordinator, well, one of them, but me. Yes, that's important. I said that last time. What's more important is not that they have any knowledge or understanding of IB, but what's important is that we are listening for language that lends them to a principal or someone who would be good in an IB school. They can have zero knowledge of IB. They don't have to have any knowledge of IB. But do they have the language? Are they allowed to talk? Are they able to talk about inclusive practices? Are they able to talk about the whole child and educating the whole child? Are they able to talk about, like, there's a variety of things, right? So, but the actual IB language, they don't. Yeah.
Thanks, Kim.
We have three things, on the list. The first is, I would consider having public participation points at time points potentially throughout the meeting. I think it's a bummer that we lost some really important participation opportunities, including from the teacher leader, who is here for 2 hours to publicly participate. So I think especially in this process, being really time aware of folks that are coming as a consideration for the teacher agenda. I agree with two of the points that have been made around a selection committee and making sure that that committee is really able to help you differentiate between a strong interviewer and a strong leader, which is always a challenge in the job interview, but I think we need folks that can really dig deep into the kinds of questions that get at what will actually be important in the school. I think more teacher and staff voice is super important, just to get that balance and to get some of that phenomenal expertise, and probably some parent perspective would be nice. But I think as a parent, I'm really focused on making sure that like the teacher and staff voice, the expertise in the building is leveraged to find a leader that can lead the building. And then I think in doing, and I say that with caution because I think we really need to balance like getting clear expectations around folks' involvement with time. Like we need to get a leader in here, and like when we talk about students missing 2 or 3 weeks of school, that's like leading them into the zone of chronic absenteeism, right? And so like really thinking about having a really clear process, making sure we're really focused on details, and I think that I agree with the points around like the survey. Thank you, Ms. Staff. I don't know that we need the survey for the advertisement. As a parent, like I feel like we can get that stuff in there, but it's the rubric and the interview that really matter. And as a parent, what I want to see is a leader in here soon that can really rally around staff support, that can really rally around student support. If discipline was a big issue, if management style was a big issue, I would love to get someone in here with haste, balancing that with an opportunity for input, which I totally agree with, and I appreciate. I would like to see parent involvement, but I think we need to really think about where our lines are around involvement.
And I usually check as you know, the email. We did get a couple of folks that said I'd be more than happy to help. I know somebody at a school who just went through that process here at 5. Go crazy. And share. Moving on to announcements, comments. I think we did some good progress. So continue working on that. I'd like to remind everyone that next February is our Lunar Year Parade. And we're hoping that Go, Peirce. Thank you. Thank you again on the norms. Thank you for being candid about these things. We're all sort of like learning as we go. Some of you have more experience. But thank you for keeping the conversation going. With that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion, Sonia?
None.
So we'll take pictures of that. Thank you again all for coming and welcome, and thank you for volunteering. Like I said, Bridget second you, and it's not too bad. You're not going anywhere. Thank you. Thanks, Jess. Turn that on real quick. Thank you.
You want my phone number?
I do.
I feel like you should take my phone number for texting because